Hello and welcome to my channel for the final video of 2020. As everybody else bandwagoning, I'm jumping on the bandwagon. I hadn't intended to do this anyway. I did mention it earlier in the month. The whole summing up of 2020. Darren says you could sit there for 20 minutes and go, did I mention coronavirus? But no. So I'm trying to sit and sum up the year without solely concentrating on, but it's kind of hard. So, beginning of the year, I can't think of anything major that stands out before. Now, coronavirus, we heard about it late in 2019. China was putting up the hospital really quickly and it was all a bit scary, but we never really thought it would come as far as us. I don't know why we thought that, because with international travel it was a given. And in March, everything ground to a halt. Now, me and Darren and Isaac, I've said this before, I think, we don't know for sure because at the time you couldn't get tested, but we think we all did have coronavirus in February. I think if we look at it, we probably either caught it from the Backyard Babies concert at the end of January, because it's the only time we were in real close proximity to other people, or possibly Isaac brought it home from school. But we went to visit my best friend Kelly in Nottingham and her partner Dave and their new little baby Alice. She'd had a baby the year before and we hadn't been able to get over to see them.
That was the most expensive day trip we've ever
been on. It was the most expensive day trip we've ever had. They had a baby the same year we went to Florida. So unfortunately, because we didn't have any cash at all, we couldn't get over to see them before. So we decided to go over in February and see little Alice and see Kelly and Dave. And Isaac started to feel a bit poorly. Well, he said he was fine, but he didn't look very well. So I said, right, no, we're going to take him back to the hotel. So we went back to the hotel, and just as the night wore on, Isaac gradually got worse and worse. Got to the stage where he was reading over 40 degrees temperature and it would not come down. Now, at that time, coronavirus wasn't mentioned over here. It wasn't a thing. And we just thought he had a bug. Now, little Alice was born early and she is high risk for any sort of bugs and viruses. So there was no way on earth I was going back to their house with Isaac potentially having some sort of bug. So we went back home the next morning after a visit to the urgent care centre with Isaac to make sure he wasn't dying or something. But in the process, we managed to get a parking ticket for stopping at a petrol station for 20 seconds to look at a map. I got a parking ticket, and the hire company that I hired the car from also fined me 40 quid for getting a parking ticket. Admin charge, yes. So yeah, so it was amazing. The hotel wouldn't refund any of the money. Obviously there were flights, so it was like, yeah, well, that wasn't expensive. Like, I think we saw our friends for 2 hours, and it's like, but I'm so glad that we didn't pass anything on, because I would have never forgive myself. But when we got home, probably a few days later, Darren started to be really ill. Now, when I say ill, he could not get off the seat for a week. He was just weak. He sat with his head in his hands for days. To be fair,
I'm most of the time anyway, really, aren't I?
Huh?
I'm most of the time really anyway.
Most of the time I sat with ours, yes. But he was not well, and he told me, he said, I have never in my life been hit with a virus like that. We just thought he had a really nasty virus. And then I came down with something, but mine was completely different to Darren's in that it wasn't as, drop you on your arse, but I had real difficulty with tightness in my chest, and I couldn't breathe properly when I was lying down, and I had a cough for 3 months. I did done videos and I'm coughing in the video. And one night I lay down and couldn't get a proper breath, sat up, felt like I was going to pass out, it just felt awful. Darren called 111, which is the advice we were given if you suspect coronavirus. And they basically said, if you're not a cancer patient...
Go on. Or you've got...
I don't know.
AIDS?
She
asked, does she have cancer or has she got AIDS?
If I don't have cancer or AIDS, or I'm not stopping breathing to the point my lips are turning blue, you deal with it yourself, basically. Yeah. But I think that was the first time. And then there was another night was even worse, and Darren called a urgent care centre in Ballymena. But I was displaying heart symptoms, so they sent out an ambulance. So this is one of the standout things of the year for me. I've never been in an ambulance before. This was my first ever time in an ambulance, and it was really unpleasant.
If they want to picture the scene from E.T., where they put all the plastic covers over the house and bring the ambulance up to wheel E.T. and Elliot out, that was you going out of the house with them in their gear.
Yeah, they came in full gear on, mask on. I had a mask on. The neighbours were twitching, and this was 2:30 or 3 o'clock in the morning, and the neighbours were twitching their curtains. And off I went to the hospital. And what was really uncomfortable about it is one person sits in the back with you, and obviously the other person drives. And that person did not speak one word to me the entire time we were there. Not he was probably overworked, he was probably really fed up, he was probably whatever he was. But I had to sit in the ambulance when we got to the hospital for about 45 minutes with him, and he would not speak to me. And his whole demeanour was very clearly one of, don't try to make conversation, he does not want to know. And I'm sitting there thinking, have I got coronavirus? Am I taking a heart attack? What the hell's going on? But they wouldn't let me in the hospital because there was a potential I could have coronavirus. But they wouldn't test me for coronavirus because at that time, you would only be tested if they were admitting you into hospital. So I had to go to the corona testing pod to not get tested, to have an ECG done, a second ECG, which was fine, which was not a problem. It was, I think I just had coronavirus and it was messing with my chest. But I was absolutely fine. But it was my first ride in an ambulance, which I suppose is something of note of the year. As parents, obviously, the kids stopped going to school, so we had to homeschool Isaac for a few months, which was fine. We managed okay, I think. He did his homeschooling every day. He did quite well. We stuck to everything we needed to stick to. He read loads. He read the entire collection of David Walliams books, loads of David Baddiel books. We started on the Harry Potter series, and then he went back to school and they dictated what they were allowed to read, which to me is ridiculous. They should be allowed to read their own books if they have them and they enjoy them. But anyway, that's another thing. In the little village I live, a group of people started something called, what was it called? Glenravel Beats Corona or something like that. And basically we all had to go out and do fitness things for certain amounts of points. We were all put into teams, and there was a big quiz at the end of it. There was points for doing things like going out litter picking, so everyone was out picking up litter, and the offshot of that is the village looked really nice. People were like talking to one another when they were out, people you didn't really know before. And we all got points every day for our team, and the points were all added up each week. And at the end, we had a big massive quiz where there was a physical element where some people had to go out into a forest in the dark with head torches and try and find the questions given these coordinates. So it was all sort of supposed to try and keep us fit and stuff, but it was fun. It was something to do. Well, Isaac did a virtual sports day through a app called Healthy Kids, so we tried to keep him moving as much as possible, which when you have a kid that's obsessed by consoles is not easy. If it's not Fortnite, Isaac doesn't want to know about it at the minute. That's exactly where he is right now, in his bedroom playing Fortnite with his headset on, shouting at his friends, actually, I should say. So summer for us was homeschooling, was keeping Isaac busy, was just doing things like we did chalk artwork in the garden. We even got our picture in the local paper with the chalk art we did in the garden. So as well as with everyone else with the DIY and the homeschooling, that which kept us pretty busy, we for quite a few months had been looking for a little addition to the family, a playmate for Molly. And we had been looking for one from before coronavirus hit, but the minute coronavirus hit, everyone seemed to want a dog, and it was impossible to get one. We wanted to go down the rescue route. We didn't want to get a puppy. We wanted to get a dog that needed a home. And we tried for months and months, and eventually we were told so many names, Buffy.
I thought she was a boy at first.
We were told she was a boy. But then obviously when you go to see a dog and they bring the dog out, you're not going to say, oh, well, I thought she was a boy, because you see the little dog's face, and that's it, really, isn't it? So we called her, or Isaac called her Joy. She is now Dobby. Because Darren, in his wisdom, didn't tell us that he couldn't call a dog a one-syllable name because it just didn't seem right. So when her similarity to Dobby from Harry Potter was apparent, she became Dobby, and now she is Dobby. So we've got little Dobby to keep Molly company, and she is just the funniest little dog.
There she is.
In her pink jumper. Hello, Dobby. Dobby. Hello.
She's very tired. Oh, there's Molly as well.
And Molly's there as well, in her pink jumper. So we've got our little playmate for Molly. So that's us for dogs for now. No more, I've told Darren.
They did offer us 4 Yorkshire Terriers when we were there on top.
Christmas was much like any other Christmas for us. I do feel for larger families that get together and couldn't this year, or you get grandparents that have everyone that comes round, and that must have been really hard for them. But on the other hand, as I keep saying, I'm sure there are men up and down the country rejoicing, getting to sit in their own seat and watch their own telly and not have to go to their in-laws' houses. Probably women as well. It's not just men, that the whole in-law thing. But we always have a small, quiet Christmas here anyway. There's just my parents. There's no other relatives we go to see. So we were able to do that for a couple of hours. And then we've just spent Christmas in our own home. So it's quite nice. I like a nice, quiet Christmas, to be honest. So I can't complain. That's all we've done this year that I can think of. I've still kept in touch with all the people on YouTube that I've been in touch with this year. People that have come to be friends, which are awesome. This year has been a pretty political one. I'm not going to start talking about politics. Well, I am a little bit, but don't worry, not loads. We've had the defeat of Trump, which personally I was delighted to see. Hopefully Biden will do a lot of good for the US. I'm very hopeful for them for that reason. In the UK, politics weren't much better. We have the English Trump. We have bumbling Boris, who there's no words. There are no words for the man. Brexit is just a mess. Brexit, if you're in the US and you don't know what it is Britain is pulling away from Europe. They want to stand on their own. They don't want to be part of the European Union. So British exit, Brexit. And basically the government have messed it up over and over and over again, and we're going to end up coming out of Europe with no deal, and things are going to go to hell in a handbasket. But let's not talk about that either, because coronavirus has probably saved Boris from the mess that is Brexit and that he has created with Brexit. But what can you do? I know a lot of people like Boris, but I'm not one of them. So it's been disastrous for politics this year. And I watched, when I was watching Ross, I think it was on his random TV channel, he was summing up about 2020, and like he said on his video, one of the positives is that the world, the environment, got a chance to regenerate a bit, to rest, and it really does show the effects of our lives and what we're doing to the planet in the little changes that happened when everything stopped for a little while. But what's quite scary for me personally is back in March, April, May, that sort of time when we went into first lockdown here in the UK, and everyone did stay at home, and I didn't go to my parents' house for months. Everyone really abided by everything. The supermarkets had arrows with one-way systems. We had to queue outside stores and only a certain amount of people were in. Everyone was really careful about the 2 meter distance and masks and hand sanitizer, and now it's worse than it was back then. We all had another lockdown for a while. We had one just before Christmas here in Northern Ireland, and then they inexplicably opened everything up again just before Christmas, obviously for trade reasons. I do feel for people that have businesses that are really struggling, that are going out of business, and it's awful. But on the flip side of that, people are dying. And what's more important, money or business? And I understand people talk about mortgages and all this stuff, but all those people that are losing multiple family members, maybe a father and a mother, a grandparent, both sets of grandparents, just because we need to go out and buy Christmas presents. I did all my Christmas shopping online. I do most years anyway, but now, having watched the news tonight, the daily figure of new cases in the UK was over 50,000 in one day. Usually the maximum over this last month or so have been 30 something thousand. I think 36,000 was a massive, like, oh my god. And then last night was 40 something thousand, and tonight they've announced 50 something thousand. And there's never been, that's the worst yet, this entire pandemic. It's getting worse. Obviously, everyone was allowed together for the Christmas period. So, what is going to happen in 2 weeks' time? What sort of pressure is the hospitals going to be under? And they're not coping as it is. People are waiting in corridors for hours. People aren't being treated. People aren't going to hospital that need to. People that have heart issues, people that are having potential strokes, are so worried about the whole corona thing, and they obviously know about the waiting times and just say, oh, I'm not going to go. People are dying of other things. And what is going to be, and this is just a harbinger of doom, isn't it? But it's 2020. I want to talk about how it is. What's going to happen in 2021 when all the people that haven't gone for cancer checks this year have, when they discover something that it's too late to deal with? Smear tests haven't happened. The mammograms haven't happened. I know because I go for both religiously, and I haven't been for any. My mum had breast cancer, and it's something that I keep a close eye on. But you're not entitled to have the check unless you're, I think, 52. But if you properly go to a specific place, a charity, you can be checked. So I do every year. But I can't have that done. And not to be rather vulgar, but if you're a larger chested woman, the possibility of you finding something is minimal. And my mum only discovered her cancer via a mammogram. My mum's very slim and very slight and very small chested, and there was nothing to feel. There was no lump, there was nothing that she would have been able to pick up, but the mammogram picked it up, and she was lucky. So I worry about all the women out there, well, not just women, men's cancers, and it's difficult enough to get most men to go to that. I'm not being sexist. I'm talking about generally a lot of, especially older generations, like my dad, for example. It's hard enough to get men to go to the doctors. And when you've got all this going on and they've got a problem and they're a bit, should I go, shouldn't I go? At the minute, they're going to say, nah, I'm not going to bother. Because that's just the nature of the beast, isn't it? So I think everybody seems to think now that we have a virus, or a vaccine, that things are all going to change and everything's going to improve. But I think 2021 is going to be quite a sobering year also for a lot of reasons, not just coronavirus. With, at the moment, the two new strains that we've got, one from South Africa and one which I don't know where it came from, but it seemed to first appear in London. I don't know where it originated from. But will the vaccines deal with that, or will this virus keep changing and not be beatable? It's all very scary. It's just, everything's so unknown at the moment, so we just have to wait to see what happens, really. I try to stay positive. This doesn't sound positive, but I very much want to err on the side of caution with, going places and wearing masks and using hand sanitizer and doing things you're meant to and following the rules, which it really angers me to see how many people don't, and how many people are flippant, and how many people need to die before people recognise that this is a real thing. And we watch the news and they talk about kids going back to school, and they talk about there's no risk to the kids. And you're saying, this is people on the news, and you're thinking, no, there potentially isn't risk to the children, but those children are carriers and they bring it back home to people that are at risk. So, sending kids back to school when our country is currently on a 6-week lockdown, although Northern Ireland, this is another thing that does my head in. Northern Ireland is part of Britain, it's part of the United Kingdom, but it's joined on to Ireland. So Ireland's rules are completely different from Northern Ireland's, but you can just drive down to the south of Ireland. Scotland, Wales and England's rules are all completely different, so you can just drive wherever you want if you fancy different rules. But there's no like tying everything together. There's no making the same rules. Everything's tiers, like tier 4, there's tier 1, 2, 3, and 4, different, levels of how serious it is. But what's to stop you driving into another city? I know they say you shouldn't, but people do. People want to go out to a restaurant and have a meal, but they're not allowed to where they live. They're going to drive to the next city and do it over there. And what's that doing? Spreading the virus. So there just doesn't seem to be anyone taking proper, serious control of it. And I know it's difficult, and I know you have to measure up children's education and you have to measure up businesses, but are we going to see an end to this unless someone takes a really brutal approach and just says, look, we're just going to have to shut everything down? But they're sending the kids back in the first week in January, in the middle of a 6-week lockdown here in Ireland, Northern Ireland. So we only have places that are essential, like supermarkets, food places. Even those businesses must shut at 8 p.m. So there's like an 8 p.m. curfew. Taxi companies aren't allowed to operate after 8 p.m. Things like clothes shops aren't allowed to open. Anything that isn't essential is not allowed to open here, but they're sending the kids back to school. And obviously they've got they're all on a school bus. So it beggars belief. And they say, well, kids aren't at risk. But the parents at home or the grandparents maybe are at risk, because a lot of grandparents are the caregivers to the kids while their parents are at work. So my mind just boggles trying to work it all out. I just struggle with it. I'm just hoping that there are some positive changes next year, but the cynical side of me worries about all the other things that I talked about before. But it would be nice to do a nice cheery roundup to 2020, but can we really do a cheerful roundup and pretend the 12 months that we've had haven't happened? I don't think we can. We did get a Dobby though. That's a positive. She's asleep on my knee at the minute. We had a friend that is still in hospital. He is, I would say, late 50s, and he has corona, and he was taken into the corona intensive care unit in, I think, the end of November, and he's just moved out of there into normal ICU at the moment. He was
for about 3 weeks.
He was on a ventilator for 3 to 4 weeks. He was fully sedated. They thought he wasn't going to make it. He was in a really bad way. Then he improved a little bit, and then he worsened again. At the minute, he has got to the stage where he, like I say, he's just moved off the corona ward into the normal ICU ward, and he has a bit of, they're slowly reducing his sedation, so he's kind of aware. He's not allowed visitors, but they are allowed to send like video messages and things like that. So his son had a lot of his friends record a short message so he could show it to him on Christmas Day. So I did one. Hopefully he got it, but I was a bit past the deadline. I didn't see it in time, but it's, when it's people, it's close to home. You know what I mean? I've known tons of people that have had the virus, loads, and thankfully they've all been fine. They've all had quite minor symptoms, or they've had just like a really rough virus and they've been fine. But when it's someone that is someone in general good health and that is fighting for their life in hospital, it becomes a bit real. And, it shows we're watching on TV, and there are people that were marathon runners that were in very good health and now have been left. Another thing is, a lot of people are being left with fibromyalgia after this, because fibromyalgia can quite often come after a really, really prolonged or bad illness. I think my pregnancy did contribute a lot to the worsening of my fibro, because I was just so ill for so long, and then the birth wasn't good, the recovery wasn't good. All of that sort of stuff, like physical trauma, does create fibromyalgia or does worsen it. So these previously fit marathon runners, I watched a program, and this guy has found himself now with ME and fibro, which is what I've got. Previously fit, healthy people, and now they're struggling with that. So that's something else people are going to have to deal with. What do they call it? Long COVID. Some people don't recover within the normal timescale. Some people take months and months and months and are left with debilitating illnesses at the end. I've talked for half an hour. I've talked depressing talk for half an hour. Right, I think I'll sum that up now. it's been a pretty crappy year. But we're still here, and everyone that we care about is still here. Some people are still fighting to get through it, and hopefully they will. There are too many deaths every day. There are too many new cases every day. There are too many people not abiding by the rules. It is very easy to catch. And this new one apparently is 70% more easy to catch than the old one. So if you're watching this, be careful. Do all the stuff you're meant to do. Hand sanitize, wear your mask. The poor NHS staff are just under so much pressure at the minute. We used to be out clapping on doorsteps, or they were being brought hot coffees and hot meals and all this stuff. And I read an article from an NHS care worker the other day. That's all stopped now. People aren't thinking about the NHS anymore. And things are getting worse, and they need to. People are so busy thinking about businesses going under and bills and money. Think about these people that are all putting their lives at risk to help people that are dying on their own with no family members, and they're having to break this to families countless times every day. They're having to hold video to a person's face as they die. I mean, can you imagine having to do that every day and then go home to your family? And some people are sleeping in caravans and hotels because they don't want to go home to their kids. So they're making those sort of sacrifices. You think people could sit in their arse in the house, put a mask on their face and use hand sanitizer. I mean, what are you being asked, really? I'm going to get cross. So, yeah, try and do your bit. Try and be as safe as you can. And hopefully 2021 will improve a little bit for us all. But we still need to be vigilant and careful. And if you're one of those people out there that have any little niggles or any little worries or concerns, and you haven't been to see any doctors about it, get it sorted. Go see someone. You don't want to be told 6 months down the line, oh, I'm afraid you've left it too late. So that's something you need to think about as well. So, yep, 2020, over and done almost. Couple of days, and we'll be into 2021. And it can't come soon enough. Got a message. Maximum file size. Right, I'm going to have to go. Maximum file size is my phone's telling me I've talked too long. Thank you for watching. And if you want to say what you think about this year, stick it below in the comments. And I shall see you on the flip side, 2021. Over and out, family Celeste.